animate graffiti effortlessly using AI, then dive into Mocha for precise planar tracking and seamless rotoscoping, and of course composite it all flawlessly to discover a clever sky replacement trick which helps you to control the weather anytime you need. All of this and much more in this tutorial that teaches you how to make the walls sing. Now before we dive into After Effects to track our shot, let me quickly walk you through the process I used to animate this graffiti, which I captured at the Talpiot market in Haifa, Israel. Here's the original artwork, likely created by ERCK. Now unfortunately I couldn't find any details about the artist, but I've linked to a fantastic Facebook page showcasing Haifa's street art, where you can explore and admire more incredible pieces around the city. So first I brought this image into Photoshop and tried generative AI to clear out the distracting background. Firefly didn't quite deliver the flat wall look I wanted, so I switched to a more reliable and old-school technology, content-aware feel, complemented with some classic clone stamping techniques to achieve a clean version of this graffiti. Next, I cropped and saved the cleaned up image and then experimented with my go-to AI video generation tools, starting with Runway Gen 4. I got this result, which looked nice but was too subtle. So I tried the same prompt in Sora and received two variations, neither particularly thrilling. So finally, I gave the same thing to Kling AI, which gave me this result. And though it's not perfect, it became my favorite choice. So I exported this version to use as my source, and then imported it into After Effects and placed it in this composition, which is also containing this clip, shot by my friend Tzachi Asher, somewhere in Hungary, I believe. Now we are ready to track and composite our animated graffiti onto the wall and swap out the dull white sky for something more engaging. Alright, so let's start first by a few quick compositing tips to match this to the first frame in this composition. So I'll use the property panel to scale it to say 32%. I'm going to place this image over here. It's actually this animated graffiti video, and I'll zoom in so we can have a closer look here, maybe just a touch out. And what I think I need to do is first say goodbye to the background color. So I'll do it using the color range effect, which is great for replacing those kinds of like consistent colors or sky. I'm just going to add a few more colors over here until I feel that this works. And then I can reposition it as well as change the blending mode. Let's go with multiply, as well as press T and change the opacity to maybe 80%. It looks better, but I still don't think it matches in terms of the colors. So to quickly fix it, I'll use the color link effect. Again, a very useful effect which will allow you to define a source layer, in this case the background, which I've named the dove from above. I'll respect the stencil original alpha and then select, let's start with soft light. So this is the before and after. Although this is very mild, you can see how much it helps to bring everything together. Now obviously this is not tracked yet. We can also, if you want to take the extra mile, add maybe a Gaussian blur here with a value of 1 or 2, just to make sure that, you know, it has more or less the same amount of sharpness. Now we need to actually track this graffiti onto the wall. So we'll switch off the visibility for the layer. We are going to select the background layer, and I'm going to use Mocha AE. And if you do have access to Mocha Pro or just want to try it out, there is a link underneath with a 15% discount, just in case you want to check it. This is going to give you some machine learning rotoscoping tools. But we are going to rely on the built-in Mocha AE version that ships with After Effects. And we're going to track two things. We're going to track the wall here and the building. So I'll click on the Mocha AE logo, which is going to open the interface. And I'll start by selecting the Rectangle X-Spline tool. I'll make sure that I'm capturing the surface that I want to track. So I'm going to actually add a little bit of the edge of the building, but I want to be very careful not to touch the edge of this building, which is closer to us. And this is because it's not in the same plane. It's not using the same parallax. So I don't want to confuse the tracker. I also don't want to track the skew and probably not the rotation, but I will check the surface tool. So I know where actually Mocha is going to track or where the result will be. And I'll move this square and maybe also scale it up, something like this. So the center of it is going to be more or less the center of this wall. Now I'm ready to start the tracking after double clicking on the layer and call it wall, because we will have additional tracking here. And because I'm where I am, I'm at the beginning, I'm going to track forward. And we can actually have a look at it while it is tracking. And you can see that although we have tons of interfering flock of birds, which is distracting around the image here, Mocha doesn't care. And the result is beautiful. It looks really precise. Let's just have a look again. Check that the surface tool is actually obeying and it is sticking to where we want it. The next thing that we want to track, I'm back at the start, is the edge of the building. Okay, so for this, I'll switch off the visibility and the cogwheel here, which means that I'm not going to track this layer. I want to create something new. I'll use the pen, the X-spline pen tool, hold down the Z key and zoom in. And then I'm going to hold down X to pan, and I'll start to just describe the edge of the building here. Now I don't need to be too precise. I think even with a very rough edge mask, it should work. I'm going to zoom again by pressing and holding the Z key. And when I think I'm done, maybe over here, I'll right click to close the mask. In this case, I don't care about the surface. I'll double click and name this layer building, making sure I'm spelling it correctly, which is just an optional step. I'm also going to change the color, so we'll see something different here. It will be easier to recognize. And I'll select the layer, making sure that I'm only taking under account translation, I guess, and scale. Nothing is rotating here. I'll give it a shot, monitor it closely to see if it's skipping, or maybe I need to fix it on the way. So if this is the case, I can always stop and I can refine it, or I can just move those points. So I can do it while this is tracking, or I can do it at the end of the track. It's totally up to you. It's going to create a new keyframe, as you can see, and I'm going to continue tracking from this point. And I think that this is going to work for our purposes. So let me just really quickly, I think this is okay. All right, I'll save my progress and I'll close out of Mocha. Okay, the next step is to create a null object. This is going to be the tracking data. I'm going to just call it tracking data wall for the poster. It is going to help us to connect everything together, keeping all the things that we did for the poster in the first frame intact. So it's not going to move it or shift it. Now the way to do it is to return back to the layer that has the Mocha effect. Open the tracking data, click on create track data and select the one that we want. So in this case, the wall, I'll click OK. And we only want the transform and we want to apply it to the TD wall, tracking data wall. All right, so I'll click apply and this is going to place the null object over here, exactly where we want it. And this means that we can now, assuming we can see the parenting, in my case I can't, so I need to right click and from columns, select parent and link, which means that now I can pick whip the tracking data null and press spacebar, and we can see that now our poster is moving with the wall. Now this is so flexible because we can still select it and move it anywhere we like. So if we want, we can scale it, we can maybe stretch it just a touch. These are our two independent layers, although the geometry properties are being controlled via this TD wall. Okay, and now we need to duplicate this layer with the Mocha effect. So this is again just for the edge of the building here. And for that, I'll open up the matte options and we have this option to create AE masks. You can say goodbye to the Mocha effect on this layer. This is going to be a redundant copy because we already have another one on the original. And as you can see, I'll maximize it. This is going to create a nice rotoscoping effect, basically cutting out the building. And if you want, you can mess with the mask. This is an After Effects mask. So if you want, you can maybe add a bit of a feathering just to smooth it out, or you can expand it, whatever you like. but for our purposes, I think it looks quite nice. What I do want to include is the birds here. Let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to zoom in to a place that we have this bird, and we can see that it's not really registering correctly on top of the graffiti. So for that, I'm going to duplicate yet another copy. I'll place it above everything. I'll name it, or rename it, I should say, birds. Take away the Mocha AE effect, and instead I'll use the extract effect, right? So this is just a elaborated Luma key effect, which is going to help me to bring back the areas that I want, keeping the existing detail. So have a look at this. Now we can see the birds, and I'm going to just smooth the transition out, creating a very nice mix between the texture of the building underneath and the image, which is the graffiti. And this is looking much more promising now. It also helps to smooth out the bad rotoscoping that we got because we were in a rush. All right, the last thing that I want to show you, and this is a really cool trick. For that, I'll return back to the project panel, and I'm going to take a copy of this sky image. I'll place it underneath the birds layer. So let me show it to you in its full glory. You can see that this is quite a big image, and I actually want to create a fake parallax and attach it and replace the sky image that we have underneath. Now, we can do the tracking thing that we did a moment ago, but here is something that you may want to try. I'll go to Effects, this time from the menu, and under Distort, I'll apply the CC Power Pin effect. And this is going to give me 4 pins at the edges of the image. So I can drag this one over here, let's say this one somewhere over here, and basically just create something interesting in terms of the parallax or the distortion that I want the sky to have as a replacement. Now, to see it better, I'm going to bring back all the other layers and maybe also zoom back. We can see that we have this edge of this sky image that we need to take care of. Don't worry, we'll do it in a moment. You know what? Let's just do it now so we can see how everything is building up together. And to solve this issue, I'm going to add the linear wipe effect and basically just cut the edge of the image here. So maybe around 50, maybe even more, 52%. And I'll compensate by changing the feather value, which is looking great over here. But as you can see, the parallax is not being calculated correctly because this is just a stationary image. So to cheat, to make it look like it is moving with the shot, I can open up the expansion here and I can animate every single one of the edges. So in this case, I think I'm going to do it for the bottom. So I'll start with a value of maybe 0 because it looks great at the beginning. Go to the end and I'm just going to move it somewhere over here. So I'm basically a little bit of eyeballing it, and I think I also need to animate the transition completion of the wipe. So it's going to cover the rest of the image. I'm also going to change the blending mode to multiply for this layer, as well as change the opacity to, let's go with 88. It's just easy to type. Okay, all right, so let's maximize it. And let's have a look at what I consider to be the final result. So I think this looks great. And hopefully this was useful information for you as well. And if not, at least we had some fun together and we saw how to bring graffiti to life. If you want to see more, I've got so much stuff going on cooking in my oven, so make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you again in the next one.